I don't owe the IRS any money. I don't have any warrants for my arrest. I don't owe any large amounts, of money to anyone. I'm not in any trouble. That's really all I can hope for.
Hey, my name is Jim Ward. I'm a musician from El Paso, Texas. I also own this restaurant, Eloise, with my wife, Christine. During the pandemic, I started to have some conversations with friends and friends of friends on Instagram Live. Now that things have opened up a little bit, we've started to be able to do it in person. We call it Let's Get a Drink. So, let's get a drink. Today we're with Buzz Osborne from the band Melvins and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, some other stuff.
A legend. I'm sure people say that a lot, right?
Some.
First off, welcome to El Paso. How many times have you been to El Paso?
I don't know. I have no idea how many times I've been here. First time I was here was in 1986. We played a show here. It was almost no one was at. Mm-hmm. And the place, it was almost an abandoned building, looked like. The walls were all bashed out of it, and there's rubble everywhere on the floors.
Soundseas, I'm gonna think maybe. Would 86? That be right? 86? I don't know. There's so the thing about El Paso, and I don't know your hometown, but I know you're Northwest, right?
Yeah, but I haven't been up there in a long time.
But so growing up though, independent or DIY scenes kind of come and go really rapidly.
Yeah.
So they do here. So it's like when someone says I played here in '86, we would have to go back through a catalog of like 10,000.
I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
But there's
was that
here.
Was that your first U.S. tour?
Yes.
I love that El Paso was on that first U.S. tour.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of long drives between shows that no one came to. So. At the end of that tour, we said we would never tour again.
How did you fund it?
We just lost money.
Yeah.
We're not in a position to lose money. I think by the time we got back in 1986 dollars, we probably lost collectively about $800, which was an insane amount of money.
Right. Everybody's working just normal jobs.
Belief. I've only ever had minimum wage jobs.
Yeah.
I've never done when I was working for someone. So I've never had a job, like a real job. Yeah. So I was not in a position to lose.
How old are you on this tour?
58.
No, on that tour, I mean.
Oh, that tour. I was 58. No,
you look good.
I'm on tour now. So, God, I don't know. I don't know. 21, 22.
So it's 86, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is Melvins.
Melvins, yeah.
Yeah. Was Melvins your first band? Your first band?
I didn't start playing guitar until I was 18. So it seemed like a long time, but 17, 18. And it seemed like a long time, but I was by 83, which was less than 2 years, we had already played our first show from the time I started playing guitars. It seems like, in retrospect, it seems like it took forever, but in reality, it didn't take much time at all.
So did you play an instrument before that?
No.
So why'd you pick up a guitar?
I don't know. It seemed like it was fun. It'd be fun to do. I liked rock music.
What kind of stuff are you into at this point?
By then, I was really into punk rock stuff. Probably my favorite band at that point still is The Who. But punk rock is really what kind of got me into the idea that I could do it, maybe.
Yeah.
Myself.
I always talk about. So I'm very similar. Started playing guitar basically at 16. Started at the drive-in at 17.
Yeah.
But because I played punk rock, no one told me that I couldn't.
Yes.
No one said you have to be a shredder in order to be in. You don't have to know your scales in order to be in this band.
I still don't.
Neither do I.
No scales.
Same thing. All right.
So El Paso seemed weird to me. It was odd. I'd never been here, and it still seems weird. It's a strange, because to me as an outsider, it all seems like one big city to me that's divided.
Yeah. I think that's the way we see it too, and I think it's hard for us to explain that unless you come and see it.
Yeah.
And I do generally feel like when people come to El Paso, the first thing they say, if they spend more than like a few hours here, they'll say the people are amazing.
Yeah.
The people are so friendly and it's so kind. And well, yeah, we're friendly because this is essentially still a frontier. It's this weird mashup of first and third world, and we kind of don't fit in anywhere. So I think the best choice is to just be nice.
Yeah, it's isolated to some degree.
Still,
I
yeah,
would say.
even with everything.
Yeah,
Physically
you really have
isolated
to
for
want
sure.
to be here to get here. It's not. You might accidentally get here traveling through to somewhere else, but you'd really you have to want to be here.
How much time have you spent here? Not to spend too much time on El Paso, but just I'm curious other people's perceptions of our town.
I've been here a lot of times playing. I don't know how many times, more than a dozen, and a lot of times driving through, stopping, and a lot of times stopping here, traveling through, just staying in hotels.
Yeah.
It's a good spot. I live in Los Angeles, so you're on your way east, and El Paso's a good spot in the first day to stop.
Yeah, it's
I've done
kind
that a
of
lot.
you're
a
sort
lot
of
of
beat
times.
by that point.
Don't always play El Paso every tour, but we certainly probably drive through it every tour.
Yeah.
I would say. So I've been here lots and lots and lots of times, and for both work and not work. So it doesn't remind me of any other Texas cities. Certainly not the ones people know, like El Paso. I mean, Austin or Dallas, or doesn't seem like that at all. Those seem like more like normal American cities.
Yeah, I think that I always call it brackish water, just because we're sort of a mashup of a lot of cultures and a lot of energy from the Mexican side and the American side.
Yeah.
But again, usually we just don't fit it anywhere.
Yeah, still part of Texas, even though as an outsider as well, I get the feeling from other parts of Texas that they don't consider El Paso part of Texas.
We do definitely have a chip on our shoulder about that. I would say we are the forgotten stepchild kind of feeling.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
There is always this sort of movement to go to New Mexico. There's always somebody saying like, well, we should just leave Texas and join New Mexico, which I couldn't. I don't want to do that. I like being Texan. I like being West Texan especially.
Yeah.
Have you ever spent any time in sort of the other parts of the West Texas desert, like Marfa or?
I've never been to Marfa, but there's a lot of talk that I've heard from lots of people that consider El Paso, Marfa, West Texas like arty.
Yeah, Marfa has a big art scene.
Yeah, that's the way it's perceived.
A lot of people that want to be artists hang out there.
Yeah.
I think. What I'm curious. Like, so we talk a lot on this thing that we do about origin stories, and I know now you started playing guitar at 18, right? Started touring around 21,
give or take. Yeah.
Did you, at that point, did you ever want to do anything else? Was that ever? Because you're still on tour.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. We're almost done. Second to last show tonight, and that will be show. This is a show 107, and
For 22?
yeah, since March 107 tonight and 108 in LA. So that's about right. We usually do 80 to 120 shows a year, but we had 2 years off for the pandemic.
Yeah.
Which was it's really strange. The longest I've ever been home.
During the pandemic.
Yeah. It's the longest period of time me and my wife were together on without any separation. So, and we didn't get divorced.
That's a good sign.
What do you know?
What do you know?
I've been married almost 30 years, so it's good. So in that amount of time, I've always been gone, but I was before that. So
Yeah.
I can't remember what the question was.
Oh, I'm just wondering. I mean, you're still on tour, and wondering if there was anything you ever wanted to do besides be on tour.
Well, when I started playing guitar and started to play in the band, the idea of going on tour or making a record, that just seemed like a far off prospect. What probably wasn't reality. We surpassed the initial expectations of the band really quickly, which were like, it'd be great to play a show. That's it, really. We didn't have any ideas that it would be anything beyond things of that nature. The idea of making a record just seemed absurd, crazy. The idea of traveling around the world and playing music, it just would never have crossed my mind. I knew people did it, but I just didn't think of it like that.
I would imagine that comes from punk rock. So punk rock is I want to make something. That's the end of my expectations. I'm not worried about success or fame or fortune or being on jets.
I wasn't against it, but I just didn't see it happening. I also knew at that time, I was just graduating high school. I had no interest in going to college. I just thought, I'm going to make my way some other way. Like, I don't want to go to more school. I just don't have any interest in school. I just thought it was delaying people's adolescence in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
I thought it was silly. I still, in most cases, I think it is silly. I don't know why people do it. I think they'd be better off working for 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
and then figuring out what they wanted to do.
I couldn't
going to
tell
college,
you because I didn't.
know?
I didn't go either.
Yeah.
I mean, I went. That's not true. I went for about 3 weeks
Yeah.
and then sort of fizzled, and then I would fail at the end of. I did that twice.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I did it the first time because it was like, that was the deal. You can have a year off from school and you can use some of your college savings to buy a van and go on tour. My parents thinking that that would turn me off from ever wanting to tour again.
Right.
Totally backfired.
Yeah.
Got obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But then I made good and I went to college and I was fucking terrible at it. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine sitting in this room anymore.
Yeah. I'm sure I could have done it. I just didn't have any interest in it. I didn't think it was anything I wanted to do. Just didn't. And most people that I know that went to college, that's not what they do for a living.
Yeah.
So I don't really know why people go. I have no idea.
I mean, I would have to ask somebody because I don't know.
If you want to be a doctor or you want to
Sure.
be, sure, it's some
But wouldn't you
specialized
think
thing.
at that point it's like trade school? Like, even if you call it college, but like I have a friend who's a doctor and I'm glad that he went to school to be
Sure.
a doctor because he's good at it.
You
Because
need
he
to go
got
to
the
school
training.
for that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a trade, right?
Yeah. Trade schools. My wife went to trade school. She's a graphic designer. And she said that it was she originally went to a regular, more normal college. She said it was a completely different vibe. She felt like the people that were at the trade school were more focused.
Yeah, because they already knew
knew
what they wanted to
do.
Yeah. I could see
And
that.
there's
For
less
sure.
trouble, like people did their work.
I think because they had an end goal, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I would imagine. I mean, I was a terrible student for that reason, as I had no interest and didn't know. And
I had a really big interest in stuff that didn't drive me crazy. My grades in high school were basically A's and D's. I didn't have any interest. I just
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
the part that always killed me in school, sitting in these classes that I, like you said, had no interest in,
None.
was frustrating, was making me not want to be there, even for the things that I did want to be there for.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
By and large, it was a waste of time. I learned more because I worked all through high school. I learned more at my jobs than I ever did.
What'd you do?
I worked in grocery stores. I did manual labor. I worked out in the woods there doing manual labor, all kinds of things like that. Started out doing things like mowing lawns. My parents didn't have any money, so if I wanted money, I had to go get it. And at that time, teenagers could work. I don't know that teenagers work now, which I think is that's one of the worst things I've ever heard of. Because how else are you going to learn how to deal with the real world?
Yeah.
How to deal with a hot-headed boss or customers or doing a job good? How are you going to learn that? And then you're after 4 years of college and you're just supposed to step out in the world and be. That's just bullshit to me. It's bullshit.
No, I agree.
You know?
I think it is definitely seen. Like I own a restaurant and I see kids that come in early on and don't have the skills at all to even function. Like, how do I deal with an irate customer? How do I show up on time?
Right.
It's just crazy to me that we have to have these conversations that we have, but
Right.
hopefully they learn, and hopefully we're good bosses and try and be a good educator for them.
Yeah. I mean, I learned all that really early on. And I think that I learned more, like I said, more from that than I did ever from high school.
Yeah.
Because especially at the grocery store I worked at, I was working with people that were from teenage age to in their 60s and all points in between. So I got to see how people work, how people operate, what they think, how adults think, what they do and don't do, what's good, what's bad. Some of it was horrible, some of it was okay.
And I would imagine that experience going into a tour, and I'm sure the rest of your band is from the same
Working class.
right?
Yeah.
So you go on tour and you handle it different than you would if you were more privileged, I would say.
I don't know that. I know that touring is being in a band and touring and not having a regular job is like operating under the realms of normal society. So,
But you still have to get up and take care of yourself and
do.
get to the next city.
but it's odd.
And nobody's going to do it for you. That's
Nobody's
what I
gonna do
mean.
it for you. You should have to have a good work ethic.
That's what I
but
mean. Yep.
you're not. It's not a 9 to 5 work. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's a stranger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not a 9 to 5 guy, so it's good as
think
far
it
as
would-
that's concerned.
I would be hard pressed to find people in touring bands, especially young touring bands that are 9 to 5 people.
What happens on tour, you may have seen this yourself, is people fall prey to this thing I call tour psychosis, where after a certain amount of time they flip out for no reason, and they just lose their minds over things that are of little consequence. I don't think that would normally happen to them if they weren't under
Well,
the semi-stress of touring.
sure.
Good example is the Buddy Holly story to me, because there they are on tour. It's in the winter. The heaters broke down on their bus. He's freaking out. He can't do his laundry. So then it becomes, partway through the tour, it becomes logical to him to rent a small plane in a snowstorm so he can fly to the next place and do laundry.
Yeah.
That is tour psychosis. Completely.
Yeah.
Had he not freaked out, he would have survived. So there it is.
I mean, I think about I'm thinking about a lot of my friends that have not gone on. That I think the whole big picture of tour psychosis becomes life psychosis when this thing that we do that we love becomes a job, and then there's some inescapable pressures that come from that. Making bad decisions like the plane, or abusing yourself to the point where you're numb so that you can deal with something that should be fun in the first place, but you now sort of have found a bad place in it.
Yeah, drugs and alcohol in any situation, it's going to change everything. And that knows no level of society. It's on every level.
Sure.
And it's in every job.
Yeah.
And it certainly was in the jobs I worked at as a teenager. Saw all that stuff. And it's certainly in the music world. Maybe a little more so than normal.
Well, it's just handed out.
Yes, handed out.
Yeah.
I personally don't do any of that stuff. But I'm around people who do it all the time. And for me, it's better to not do that stuff.
Has it always been that way for you?
No, but I haven't done anything in decades. So it's just, I realized, especially with alcohol and stuff like that, it's like, I can't turn it off after 2.
Yeah.
If I drink 2, I'll drink 20. Yeah. It's better to not. It's just better to not do it.
I mean, and it's good to find that.
Yeah. And so I'm odd, as rare as a dodo bird, in the music world, So that's okay. Fortunately, that kind of environment doesn't bother me. So it doesn't make me.
So you're not the sort of person that. I know people that can't be around it because they don't do it.
Yeah, if that was the case, I would have to really do a lot of changes in my life, but that's not the case. So I don't have any problem with that. So I never have. Doesn't mean I won't, but I haven't in a long time. So I view it. I'm on tour to do one thing. That's it.
Yeah.
My focus is getting to the next place and doing my show. That's it.
It's
not a vacation.
Before we finish, and thanks again for the time.
Yeah.
Before we finish, I'd love to just sort of ask what the future plans are. What's the goals? Because everybody's at a different point in their life, and everybody has a different goal. Yeah. And I love hearing people's dreams.
Well, what I realized for me was that I realized this a while ago after I got married, that life doesn't get any better for me than when I'm lying on my bed at home with my wife next to me and our dogs, and maybe we're watching a movie, and I don't owe the IRS any money. I don't have any warrants for my arrest. I don't owe any large amounts, of money to anyone. I'm not in any trouble. That's really all I can hope for. Yeah. The rest of it is just extra stuff that you can be glad that you have and you can enjoy. But beyond that, I don't really know that there's a treasure out there that I could get to that's going to be better for me than that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think
not
it's
that
awesome.
I know of.
Yeah. No,
that's a perfect example of what. But I realized that pretty quickly, especially when I got married. I realized that women that were willing to put up with me and what I do for a living don't grow on trees. So I have to find one once you find one that does that, don't ruin it. Don't mess it up.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Make it work.
Yeah.
Because it's a give and take thing, but it's a great partnership to be in. I have found that I have accomplished more by being in that relationship, and than I would have on my own. And I value it. That's my single greatest accomplishment. To me, that's the thing that's going to be with me longer than anything else. So, and I got that as a result of music. Had I not played music, I would not be in the situation I'm in. So, with her, so I value it a great deal, and I don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for the time today. What a great way to end. Awesome.
Awesome. Hope that was all right.
That was great.
Good.